Alright, I don't know what's going on with that. Hopefully everything is working. It's been a little bit since I've done this. So today I'm going to finish off all of my Web Warriors. It's been a long time coming, probably. But I got Silver Sable painted up because I just wanted to play her, and realized I only have one Web Warrior unpainted, so to give him a try. This is one that I primed with the rest of the core set models of the Mighty core set, which I did kind of a poor job of at the end of the day, but gonna get into it. You can see a little bit of black lining, which is absolutely immediately going to get covered up. I wanted to try some panel liner that typically is used on other model kits like Gundam and stuff like that, and I think the result ended up being good enough. It looks okay. Don't think I'm necessarily going to stick with it, but I was curious how it would react to the recesses in Spider-Man's costume and stuff. So, also I went ahead and fiddled with the eyes because I had the white out at some other point, but I have a strong feeling those are going to end up getting touched up, probably dulled down a little bit before we go anywhere else. But yeah, so Spider-Man, pretty simple. Red, blue, a little bit of black and other stuff into the mix, and we'll see where it goes. I'm going to try a little bit of a brighter blue, almost more of a pale blue than the like royal blue that you would do for like Captain America typically, or something like that. Because usually I've painted all my Captain Americas and Spider-Man basically in the exact same color palette. Not necessary that that is the case, but it's what I've been doing. So, excited to, one, start a little bit darker on the red for Spider-Man. This will do two things. One, it'll help hopefully sell the shadow down in the recesses of this guy. When we go back, and we're going to try to just hit it with a wash and see just how dark we can get these inner parts. And then help also hopefully make some of the red bits we go for when we go in and highlight these little squares all the more brighter. And because this is the first color we're putting on, I get to be messy, which is always a random nice perk. All in all, though, this guy makes for a really good Web Warrior. I have not played the Web Warriors too often at the local scene, and when I do, it has been more recently a very punchy version of the Web Warriors, going with Gwenom, Ben, normal Venom, and usually Miles is still the leader just because that reroll is real nice. But all in all, a pretty aggressive take on what a Web Warrior team could be. Get the little spider back here. And again, because we're messy, or being messy rather, We're just gonna make sure all of that is covered in at least some color. That way when we come back in with the blue, even if we don't get all the way in to the little recesses of the spider legs, we'll still be able to have a color that's not gray down in there, which is one of the things I want to make sure I avoid. And then because the web is not glued to the arm, I'm going to move it out of the way just to get at least a base coat. I love the height on Spider-Man. Yeah, I kept mine a little bit lower, absurdly nerdly, mostly so that he could fit in my current transportation system, which has a such a limit that not even Namor is able to really fit in it unless I put him in sideways. So I went with a little bit lower. And it feels good, though. It feels good for all the Web Warriors to kind of be bouncing around or on stuff. I've got, like, Gwen jumping off a trash can. Miles is, of course, doing his little jump over the newspaper stand thingy. I don't know what those are actually called. The newspaper stand would be like Daily Bugle stands that we've got. You guys know what I'm talking about, though. Hopefully. Apparently, gray or gray is based on whether you are in the UK or England area versus America. Apparently, they started spelling it differently, and now I'm not sure which one is correct for each region, but gray is gray at the end of the day. So typically, I will start with a black, and then I'll do kind of like a zenith in gray and then a zenith in a lighter white, or really just more of a light gray, which is then the gray just mixed with a little bit of white. This is from a time when I was priming. I had just moved into the new house, did not have an airbrush station set up yet. Cool. GRAY is the American version. Good to know. So I just rattle canned my new core set because I wanted to be able to start painting up some of those pieces I wanted to play with. And so, yeah, typically my prime will look something more like Black Panther here with the zenith and all that kind of stuff going on. Spidey and his core box compatriots, however, did not get as nice of a prime job. For Spider-Man, though, a zenith wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world, especially because I'm looking to go with a brighter blue and stuff. But at least it's not black for him, so. At this point, we just want to make sure we don't have any gray splotches on any of the lining. Or see, oh, there's his entire belt line that we missed. And again, don't be afraid to be messy with your base coat, because the last thing you want to do is leave a splotch of gray after you've done both colors that you have to go back and neaten up over. Whereas if I have a little bit of blue that runs over onto the red, or there's maybe a little section of blue that I miss, and it ends up looking red instead, much cool. So I'm very bad at painting. Apologies. Questions, ask away. I would much rather have something to talk about that you guys provide than my own ramblings. Yes, I'm using a wet palette. This is the Game Envy Exemplar. At the end of the day, it's just a wet palette. It is something that up until a local of mine, Corey, chastised me. I was using like a Tupperware box with a wet paper towel and a piece of parchment paper over that. And so that is a very good starting point as just a wet palette to kind of see if you like that style. As far as thinning the paints go, I'm using 2 thin coats, the Duncan Rhodes paint line and stuff. For that, I usually will, well, let's see if I can just get an example for you. So paint goes on here. After I rinse off my brush every now and again, I'll dry it off and get just a dab of water and kind of mix that in. It doesn't need too much because the wet palette really does a lot of the work for you in this case. What up, Vince? So yeah, wet palette is really good. It mostly it helps thin your paints naturally a little bit, but keeping them moist is another really big advantage, so that you're not having to go back and drop out some new paint. And one of the other things that I've heard it's really good for, but I don't really use it for because I myself, I consider myself an average painter, is blending your paints together. So when you're starting to mix things for smoother transitions or smaller steps up in highlight. Let's see if we can get that awkward angle down here. Right into the crotch. The wet palette makes for a very nice blending area and stuff. So when I take the next step up on the reds, I'll show you what I mean by that. Absolutely happy to do so. Alright, so that's the red blocked in and stuff. I'm just going to let it sit for a moment. And I typically don't do washes anymore because they are absolutely magic in a bottle and help all sorts of different things and stuff. But I've kind of gotten away from it, just trying to work on my own painting skill to let the shadows speak for themselves and all that kind of stuff rather than rely on the wash. So, like, as an example here is Psylocke, who just got painted up over the weekend. And the base color is just the base color, and usually a wash can leave a little bit more of a glossy texture and stuff. However, for Spider-Man, he has a lot of deep recesses in his costume that really are just kind of begging for some extra darkness to them to help sell that black. Except I'm not going to go all the way black. I have done that before. Looks great. Thank you. She was a lot of fun. Got to experiment with non-metallic metal on the sword, which worked out really well for her. Nightcrawler's sword, which was done at the same time, not as much so, unfortunately for him. Anyway, so I'm going to try to do something Dallas recommended, and we're going to use a blue wash on all of Spider-Man's red costuming for the webbing to really help make those web lines stand out a little bit more, and then make our highlighting process an absolute pain in the butt as we go back through to kind of redify everything. So this is just a blue wash. It is whatever version of wash the Tooth and Coats line has for blue washes. So I do not know the exact name or specific name or anything, but that's the one we're using. And the big thing is we just don't want it to pool anywhere in particular. Otherwise, we're just kind of slapping it on. We're not going to put it on the back spider because there's not really any reason for it to go there. Because we're going to come back with the base coat and just pick out all these little squares a lot more carefully at a later point in time. Because again, the main purpose of the wash is just to fill in the web lines. And you're just going to see me go in and clear up some wash space. And the hope is, because that does look really nice and dark, but hopefully it will be a little bit of a better transition than what black was or is. If I was prepared, I'd have my very first Spider-Man on hand for demonstration purposes of how I've done different Spider-Men in the past. You know what? While we begin to let this dry, I'm going to do just that, actually. Talk about some of the different ways you can approach the spider webbing. So, first example is original Spider-Man. Let's see. So with him, I ended up trying to push contrast paints to... I primed him white, did a black contrast, and then just tried to go in and pick out all the individual things. However, I don't think the contrast really managed to work, as I was a little bit too sloppy anyway. But still a pretty good Spider-Man, all in all. You can tell who he is, at least. The next one, I used I think it's like a Gundam ink marker or something. And basically I painted my red base, and then I went in with this little super thin marker and individually drew in all of his lines of black. And it looks, all in all, pretty good. The one thing it does do is it makes it it's very stark black. In person, it again sells as Spider-Man, but it doesn't necessarily, it is very clean, but it doesn't feel very clean, doesn't look very clean. So I am hoping that this new technique that gives us, it's kind of like, it's a shade, oh man, he looks like I've painted him black almost in comparison here. So I'm going to go back in with the red base tone now and begin layering up after all that. I'm going to give that a little bit longer to sit, actually, and go ahead and just start on the blue bits for a little bit. And just in case you're watching absurdly, we're going to go over here, drop a little bit of blue. just dip the brush so that it's glistening, and then just kind of draw the blue into that. And that is kind of how thin I'm looking for the paint to get. All right. And found a little bit of wash pulling. So I'm just going to go in there with a dry brush and soak it up real quick. Don't see it happen anywhere else. All right. Ah! Alright, so I think I may have gone a little too thin with that blue. Probably doesn't help that I didn't dry my brush off after I rinsed it off last. So we'll just drop some more marine out there. Still in the chat, and I appreciate it. Alright, so for those of you who are in the chat, kicking around, what have you been playing recently? Have you, has everybody been swapping to the latest big bad with Apocalypse and trying to overthrow, I don't know, whatever he's trying to overthrow? If you can't tell, I'm not as big into X-Men and all that kind of stuff. They're all very cool, don't get me wrong. But I am not as familiar with those guys, as it were. Midnight Suns are a really fun team. I am personally extremely excited for their ranks to swell with Werewolf and Frankenstein's Monster and the Mummy. Less so on the Mummy. But Werewolf and Frankenstein's Monster, both very excited to get them in. Also very interested to see how Drac does in that affiliation, because on that 50mm base, a bump will help him scoot around quite a bit, if I had to guess. And obviously, being a little bit neater now that we already have one base coat down. We don't want to have to go back and repaint. Obviously, eventually I will make a mistake and I will have to go back in. And we're going to be doing the red anyway. But I don't want to have to try to reapply the wash that got the lines so dark for us and whatnot. But it is crazy, even just on camera here, how much brighter this blue is already. than the washed red sections. So it'll be fun to lighten those back up and see how it turns out. What up, Quincy? Just talking a little bit of Midnight Suns while painting Mr. Spider-Man, my final Web Warrior to get painted. I've been somewhat trying to pursue the goal of getting entire affiliations painted because my pile of potential is large. And one way that I've found to help me paint the models that do not super excite me is a checklist of like, hey, if I want this entire affiliation painted, what do I need to do to get that there? And Web Warriors are actually one that I've just naturally been pretty good at keeping up on because I enjoy that part of the Marvel Universe. Thank you, man. That was I'm really happy with how he turned out. He kind of got me back on the paint train because that's one that I started on a paint stream, and then got interrupted and had to go to the hospital. Well, not unfortunately, it was a scheduled surgery for my dad, but usually they're pretty good about like giving you a heads up of like, hey, he's in surgery, he's out of surgery, he's recovering. And they just called me and were like, hey, it's time for you to come and get him. And I was like, oh, well, that would have been nice to know. So having him half painted on my desk was a good motivation to get back to the painting side of things. The other one, oh man, it's hard to talk about Rush. The other one I'll show off again real quick. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Got her painted up over the weekend. Was Miss Psylocke. Painted up her and Silver Sable, who does not look good on camera or pictures or anything else for whatever reason. Just grayscale hard, I guess. But got them painted up because I have been playing a Xavier list and stuff. I am very lucky that I don't need glasses. My mom wears glasses. My sister wears glasses. My dad wears glasses. My sister even started wearing glasses / contacts in middle school. So I am unsure how I got lucky enough to not need glasses, but I am very thankful for it. I am not ignorant of the woes of needing glasses in general. Alright, let's get that out of the way. And so here we have what looks, on camera at least, to be almost like a Fantastic Four Spider-Man with the blue and black. This painting handle thing is fantastic when it's useful, but very annoying apparently for painting on stream. Oh man, I kind of dig the magnifying glasses kind of thing that you can do, because often when people see my the little model collection and stuff, and they're like, oh man, do you use a magnifying glass? And I'm like, no, but I bet it would be pretty handy sometimes. I also feel like for the base coats, the need for that is not quite as as bad, but we'll get into that here pretty soon as we start to get all these little squares back in the red. Alright. So at this point, I think the area around the sides of the little spider is done. And there is absolutely itty-bitty little sections of red still between those legs. But thankfully, between the light post in the way and everything else, you can't really tell. The red still pops out enough from the blue. Everything else just kind of sits in shadow, and you're good. You're sold from there. You don't have to worry about everything else so much. All right. So blue is looking at a point where it's pretty much probably done. Could probably use a second layer in some areas and just to get it blocked in a little bit better. But what I want to do is start getting in there sooner than later with the red and see how that's gonna look and work with the wash that we put down earlier, because that just seems to be the more interesting thing to do. So let's do that for a little bit. Woo! 4 minis in less than 4 days is not a task I envy for you guys. But I guess where's the next GT? Where's that happening? I know of some happening around the country, but after NashCon came and went, I kind of stopped paying as much attention as maybe I was before that. Alright. Just a little bit of that darkest red at the heel of the foot there. Or the arch of the foot, rather. And here comes the fun. So what I'm doing now is really just a practice in patience. And I'm not going to leave any shadow, so like there's a little bit of a pectoral chest area that I could leave in shadow here, but I'm going to go ahead and cover it up so that we can come back in with some of these brighter colors and still help establish highlights on these individual squares. But I really want that darkest red to only be left in the webbing. Ooh, Shatterpoint one. Very fun. What are you bringing? A little bit of Imperial action? Because that's what I would do. Inferno Squad plus Gideon has been a lot of fun. Thrawn is very cool, all his own. A little bit of a headache to play just because you got to do a little bit more thinking, but you know, if you're into that, more power to you. Yeah, Thrawn. Good stuff. I actually got to see Timothy Zahn at the end of August, early September. Went down to Dragon Con where he was teaching a writing class. Got to sit in on that and got him to sign some Mithron Euroto merch. Very cool and chill guy. So you need a little bit of a better tip on the brush as we start getting into these itty bitty panel sections on the belt. Well, if you come over to the U.S. in the fall, I know of like 3 conventions around my general area that he attends. So feel free to come over, shake his hand, take a picture, fill in the blank. Very, very chill. I only feel for him because at this point, like, Disney controls the character that, like, has made him such a popular author and like a well-known author and all this other stuff. But like at the end of the day, Disney controls Thrawn, so Zahn's only able to write a book at the request of Disney, and Disney kind of tells him like where he can and cannot write about this character, which I can only imagine is a super frustrating overall thing. I know he enjoys the fans and being able to be a part of this kind of universe and helped build it and kind of save it. If some people are to be trusted and believed about how dark it was for Star Wars fans before the EU really started coming into existence. Alright, so, even on camera here, it is a slow process, but you can kind of begin to see Spider-Man getting brightened back up, and because we've got another 20 minutes, but I don't think you guys necessarily just want to watch me go through picking itty-bitty squares of costume for the next 20 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and just focus on this core section of Spider-Man with his chest and stomach and begin highlighting that up, show you what it looks like, see if it's something that you would be interested in trying yourself the next time you paint a Spider-Man, because let's face it, even though we already have 3, AMG aren't done with them yet. I will say also, normally, especially with the beautiful paints that are the Tooth and Coats line, where it's very easily like, hey, you have a base color, a mid-tone, and a highlight color, and you use all of those step by step. I usually will end up mixing the base with the mid-tone, then do pure mid-tone, then do mid-tone with a little bit of highlight, and if that's enough, that's enough. Sometimes I'll go in and add just a little bit of highlight on its own. I'm not that crazy. So with all these itty-bitty little squares that I'm doing, we're just going to go in and pick them out straight into the mid-tone. And it's here that I can begin to see, like, hey, I think there's going to be a little bit of a highlight point right there. where his chest is because there's a wrinkle. And I don't think I ever addressed the question, but absurdly nerdly, yes, I am mostly following kind of the bumps, the rises on the model, the falls, where it kind of looks like shadow is going to be, and that is kind of how I determine where my higher highlight colors and stuff are going to be placed on a model. If you get more advanced, you can start looking at how that's going to work with like objects are sliding and all that kind of stuff. But as somebody who doesn't even do that himself, I'm not really one to try and teach on that subject. So as we go back through with the midtone now, I'm going to cover most of these squares in their entirety. Maybe leave a little bit at the edges. But for the most part, just coming back in. We begin to see that red pop just a little bit more. And one of the nice things is as I'm doing this, I'm naturally already wanting to make sure I don't get the shadows of the web. So I might end up leaving a little bit of natural base coat in there, just because I'm wanting to make sure I avoid the edges of the webbing anyway. So at this point, I could absolutely see the need and honestly the convenience of some magnifying glasses to helps to start pick out these itty bitty little squares. So that's the kind of end goal Spidey that we're shooting for, aiming for with the red and stuff, and it's just going to take a while. But that's what a good audiobook is for, good podcast, good TV show in the background. And yeah, go ahead. Cool. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the end goal is going to be looking like. And I think the purple wash on top of the red is going to be a little bit of a better transitional point than what the very stark black to red lines ended up being with this Spider-Man. So I'm just going to continue on with picking out. Well, a little bit of red paint still on there. So I think before I sign off, because, again, not the most thrilling of watches going through and picking at little squares that I may not necessarily even be able to get on camera always, is I'm going to go ahead and push up this final highlight color. And with this, I'm probably aiming to just cover a small section of each patch of red. And as we move our way down, I'm not sure how I'm going to probably try to approach the top sections here, but I'm trying to just hit the top parts of the square, trying being part of the key here, and then just picking one edge and highlighting down that side. And I'll round out the shoes a little bit. And that kind of gives you an idea of where the final product's going to go. So with that, I'm going to do a couple more of these on the belt, and probably go ahead and log off, get some lunch, and return to a slightly monotonous task of just hitting a bunch of itty-bitty squares with a itty-bitty brush. Yeah, the red's coming out. It is somewhat hard to get it to focus because so much of Spider-Man looks like he's in black versus the red that is now standing out in the blue. But it's getting there, and that is the progress being made today. But yeah, I think the red's coming along nicely. Cool. So hopefully later today in the Discord or something like that, I will be able to throw out a picture of what I've managed to get done. You know, that makes sense why JJ is in constant need of Spider-Man photos, because in addition to being in motion, his suit's already just kind of a funky one to get pictures of. And I think next week, assuming I'm able to keep pace with my current painting schedule, I might just be painting a bunch of bases, because my terrible habit is painting a bunch of models, which I'm going to show off for kicks and giggles, because what's the point of painting models if you don't show it off? I don't really paint bases all that often, so got Psylocke done, got the Shang-Chi done up, but thankfully, aside from Psylocke and Mr. Namor here, bases are typically something I leave to do in bulk because it's easy. You just do the gray, do the wash over it, and then I'll end up going for the rim paint bits and stuff. So it might very well soon be just a time to paint a bunch of bases. This is mostly done. But there's another example, though, of the results of just taking the time and picking out a bunch of itty-bitty small patches. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you for coming out and hanging out with me for a better part of an hour. I'm going to go scrounge up probably some leftovers and keep at it. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the afternoon and get some painting and games in this week. Till next time.